vicious turnovers there at the hands of Ben Tate. And I think, by the way, clearly, even those of you that don't like the Browns organization would have to err on the side of the Browns in the Ben Tate thing, because clearly they saw, I mean, signing him maybe was a bad idea, but I didn't think so at the time. I'm not going to second guess that, but clearly there's nothing happening there, as both the Vikings and I think the Steelers found out to end their season as well. That's going to be tough. I'm with you. Best game of the weekend, but I still think New England takes care of that business. But final one here, and this is interesting that here they go again, meeting up with each other. NFL's got to love this one for Sunday, the late game. You've got the Colts and the Broncos, and the former Colts legend quarterback and the current Colts quarterback and all of that, Peyton and Luck, and a good orchestrated storyline. And is it going to be a good football game as well when you've got the Colts heading to Denver?
Well, it's funny, J-Rock, because I've kept no secret. I've made it well known that my wife is a Peyton Manning fan, and that is probably the only man she would ever leave me for if he were single and he were interested. So, I'm going to have to be real quiet on Sunday. I know I can't root for the Colts because my wife will hang me like a deer out in the field that was shot. I'll be hanging upside down with my head towards the floor for all the blood to flow down if I try to root against Peyton Manning in this game. But, all kidding aside, to be serious here, that's, like you said, that's really probably going to be the best played game by both teams. I would only say that the Broncos have the edge, A, because they're home, and B, because they have the ability to get out front early and then hurt teams with your defense. The Colts are a little long in the tooth. Hey, let's face it, okay? The guys they have on that team are great, and, I'm sure that, that Reggie Wayne's going to be in the Hall of Fame. It's not a first ballot, a second ballot Hall of Famer, but, I don't think he has the steam in the engine to, outwit the Broncos defense.
Yeah, I'm probably going to put the curse of death on every team that I predicted this weekend. But, man, I like the Colts defense. But, brother, what you did with Cincinnati, and Cincinnati was missing all their main weapons, man, that is not going to be the case when you take on Denver, man. And that's going to be too much. I think Denver takes that one. I'll be honest with you. I think that one may be the least close game of the weekend, to be honest with you. I think that one may be the most decisive victory for one team. Man, maybe Seattle and Carolina. Depends what Carolina team shows up to play. But I don't see it even being very competitive. I think Denver takes that one. I'm really looking at a Patriots-Broncos AFC title game. But I would not be totally shocked if Baltimore found a way to slip past there. But I just think that New England's a different beast than what you just dealt with in Pittsburgh. We'll see. If Baltimore can do it, more power to them. But, yeah, with that Colts game, I don't think Denver's Denver's offense has much to worry about there, and I think they'll take care of business handily. I think that by halftime, that one's not in jeopardy anymore for the Broncos. So I'm predicting Green Bay and Seattle, Denver and New England for the AFC and NFC championship games. Matter of fact, while I'm doing that, I'm going to pull up our predictions here, man. I've got you on the phone. Let's go back to the beginning of the year because I had our Browns predictions, but then I also had our Super Bowl picks here. So I'm going to try to pull that up while you and I are talking here. All right, I want to segue off while we're talking about that, looking past those games. Let's talk a little Browns here. There's some. Here we go. Before we segue into that, Dr. Football. Dr. Football had, let's see, looks like you had New England. Well, you just had, I didn't have your Final Four. I just had your championship game. You had Seattle and New England meeting in the Super Bowl. So Dr. Football's Super Bowl still alive and well here with the Final Four games coming up. You had the Patriots and the Seahawks. Let's see, who did I have coming up down here? I had, I had the same as McMullen. Yeah, I had Seattle. I had Seattle and Denver. So still alive for that one there with Seattle and Denver either way. But we'll see. I thought I had our Final Four. I was going to look at that. But Super Bowl team still alive. This will be a lot of fun this weekend watching that. All right, let's go off the fun part of football and switch over into Brown stuff here for a minute. And Actually, no, this is nothing too bad. This has nothing to do with the Browns, but it may affect the Browns going forward. The Shanahan family, of course, Mike and Kyle Shanahan as a father and son combo, being rumored to have several teams, at least 2 or 3 teams, looking to perhaps bring them in as a package deal. I know that I've definitely myself talked to some people in Buffalo, and the word coming out of Buffalo is that there could be a general manager / head coach combination with one as the head coach and the other as the general manager. I would assume it would be Mike as the general manager in Buffalo and Kyle as the head coach, but that's at least one. We know that San Francisco has formally requested permission, as has Buffalo, to interview Kyle Shanahan for their head coaching jobs. The Raiders are also a team whose name has been bandied about out there. Number one, no matter what the team is, what do you think is the viability of this? It seems like this is a new thing, a new pattern that these teams are finding when they go after a coach that they may not think is 100% prepared for the job. We heard talk of this last year. It didn't work for the Browns, but how the salesmanship of Chud came with bringing a staff that included Norv Turner to oversee the young head coach. Now, we know it didn't work out, but that is a trend that we're seeing, is that sometimes teams like to package guys up and say, well, we've got this guy to help him and to give him support. How do you see that dynamic working? Because I'm not saying that there's been huge issues, but there's been dynamics between the two of them when they've been on the same coaching staffs before, hasn't there?
Oh yeah, and it, not only that, it's not the first time that we've had this happen in the league either. You've had George Allen and his son Bruce Allen involved as well in the past. When George Allen was still alive, you've had other organizations. All I have to do is point to, my team that I grew up with, the New York Giants. The Maras have always been involved as a family. When Wellington was still alive and was part owner, you had John and Chris very, very heavily involved. And in fact, I sat in the draft a couple of years ago when I visited at the Giants table. Wellington Mara's grandson, Kyle Mara, was one of the gentlemen working the table. So it is a trend in the league to have the quote unquote a family affair.
But what are your thoughts on the viability of it? First off, how would it work? And I mean, we're hearing different breakdowns. Like, I'm not hearing anywhere a very different situation in Buffalo than perhaps what you're hearing elsewhere. With San Francisco, it's more of a Mike Shanahan as the coach and Kyle Shanahan as the assistant head coach, whereas Buffalo is much more considering Mike Shanahan as the general manager, Kyle Shanahan as the head coach. Those are different dynamics as well. What do you think is the viability of any of those, and which one do you think has the most potential? I've got to think Buffalo for a lot of reasons, including the connections between the two teams now. Like, when you're doing your due diligence, I mean, obviously Mike Pettin comes from there. He's got friends, and I'm not saying this as a buddy system kind of thing. What I mean is, when it's how you get guys interviews. When I'm trying to get a guy on a wrestling show, I call the promoter and I say, hey, I got this young guy, take a look at him, he's a good kid. Same thing there. So you wonder if maybe some of the connections between Buffalo and Cleveland may not have said, hey, what do you think? Well, this could work. I worked with him this year. Background research being done, questions being asked. But what do you see as the viability, and where do you see the most smoke to the fire out of these rumors out here?
Well, actually, those two, between Buffalo and the Raiders, it's 50-50. But the one thing that hasn't been mentioned, that was just finally mentioned this morning and broke, was the possibility of the duo going to the Chicago Bears, with Shanahan as the head coach for the near future, Mike, and then moving into a sole general manager, and Kyle ascending from offensive coordinator to head coach. So we've heard that. We've heard that also.
Yeah, the Bears in the mix as well. Speaking of that, just off topic, but since you mentioned the Bears, talk about strange bedfellows. How about the talk now that Mark Trestman may reunite, I guess, in a way, with former Bears, since he just left the Bears as well with his one season under his belt, but talked that he may end up migrating down to Tampa with Lovey and McCown down there, and because he is a quarterback guru. That is one thing that he's known for, and his ability offensively. He was in over his head with the head coach duties. But I just thought that was funny. I said, man, Lovey just left. And he said, hey, I've been where you've been, kid. Come on down. The weather's nice down here in Tampa, man. Come on. And
well, you know what? It's so funny that you mentioned that. I was going to save that for last. But, you know, as I mentioned, I actually know Coach Trestman a little bit. And, you know, I texted him the other day, hey, Coach, don't worry. You won't be unemployed for too long.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
He said,
absolutely.
Yeah, he wrote me back, yeah, Doc, from your mouth to God's ears, but thanks for the support. And, you know, again, I know a lot of people that know him. I'm friendly with, you know, great guy who's, you know, formerly in the Steelers organization, who's close friends with him, who co-wrote a book with him. And, you know, Coach Jan told me that it's only a matter of time that, you know, that he will have some sort of job, if not a head coaching job, a coordinator job. And he's not averse to being back to being a coordinator as long as he's doing it. I don't think he wants to go back to Canada, you know, without, unless they make the deal so sweet that he's a head coach / general manager. And they don't really do that much in the CFL like they do in the NFL.
Yeah, he's going to probably have to regress to a coordinator position and try and hopefully get another opportunity. I mean, there was a lot of issues that came with being a first-year head coach. And much like Chud, you got to go somewhere, you got to coordinate somewhere, get your mind off being a head coach for a year or two, and then maybe take another shot at it. Speaking of that, while we're throwing former Browns and names in the wind, man, not just the Shanahans out here, we talked about Mangini last week being mentioned with the Raiders and getting an interview there. Pat Shurmur is another name that's out here with several different interviews. Buffalo, along with the Shanahans, are also interviewing Pat Shurmur for their job here with the coaching position. Interesting. Hey, you know what? I'm all for doing what you got to do, but when I see teams do things like that, like Pat Shurmur was terrible, and I'm sorry, but we saw him here firsthand. Pat Shurmur wasn't just bad because it was Cleveland, and he would have been better had he went anywhere else. Pat Shurmur was just not a good head coach in many, many different ways, in my opinion, man. Just he's a coordinator, man, and just to me, head coach is way too big for him. I know I'm not. This has nothing to do with whether he's a nice guy or not, but I just find it amazing when teams But what do you do? Because there's only so many rehash candidates, and so many people are afraid to hire people who have never done it before because of what happened with Mark Trestman, because of Chud's first year here with the Browns. When you have teams that get run over like that because they have a rookie head coach, that's why. But I always am amazed with these regurgitated candidates, you know, when you constantly hear, now his name is just completely Josh McDaniel, you know, when you hear guys that have had opportunities and then washed out and went back to being coordinator, they're always getting interviewed again. But, and I get it for some parts of it, but again, when you see a washout coach and then they interview again, maybe a team's just kicking the tires. Now, maybe we look way too much into an interview. Just because a team gives a guy an interview, they may be doing an agent a favor. They may be doing a friend a favor. Hell, Mike Holmgren hired him because he was doing Uncle Fritz a favor, man, and that's how Pat Shurmur got here, because Mike Holmgren owed his man a favor and said, hey, I'll take care of your boy Pat. Just kidding. But if you think that wasn't part of it, you're nuts. Like, there was definitely
there's a lot to that. There's a lot to that, Jerry, and obviously what people aren't mentioning is that for every guy that mentions what you just brought up in the Old Boy Network, there are a bunch of really, really good defensive and offensive coordinators out there that never get a shot, okay? And, you know, perfect example, early this morning, we got the news from New York that Carl Coughlin with his three coordinators, definitely, and he was retained. Tom Quinn, the special teams coordinator, and Perry Fellows. To me, I think Perry Fellows.
We're losing you, Doc. I don't know if you can hear me, but you're cutting in and out bad. Are you in a bad area?
Yeah, I might be in a bad spot. Can you hear me now?
That's much better, yeah.
Okay. we found out early this morning that Kaufman would be retaining both Tom Quinn and Perry Farrell. So I think Farrell's ready for that coaching job. And also here in Arizona, Todd Bowles is ready, and he's going to be doing some interviews this week with different teams. And it's no joke. The guys